Hi, this is Stevie. Today I was doing some sketching while I was sitting in my car waiting for my husband at physical therapy. And I did this sketch of just some daisies. And I didn't even have a reference. I just was doing it from my head. But I've painted lots of flowers in my life, so I had a mental reference. Anyway, I wanted to do something fairly simple to show you, especially if you're a beginner painter, how you start out drawing flowers if you just don't know where to start, and how to lay it out on a sketchbook page. When you're drawing flowers, really any kind of a flower, start with the center of the flower, and that's what's going to determine the shape of the flower and which way those petals go. And if you look at the photo that I have of the sunflowers, you'll see that the big flower is facing forward, almost directly face on. And then there are some other flowers around that are facing, one is facing up and out, and some others are facing not really down, but more straight across and out or up the other way. And they have a different center shape, and that's called an ellipse. So this is a round center, and a round center indicates that this object is facing you head on. Think of yourself looking at a quarter on the table. If you're looking at a quarter on the table, it's round, just round. But if you picked up that quarter and turned it slightly, the shape becomes more elliptical, oval shape. And that's what happens when you look at flowers from the side. So when I drew these two flowers, this one is more looking down, and it has more of an elliptical shape. And so what I did when I drew this was I actually made a circle to start for my flower shapes and where I wanted them to be. So I drew the big circle for the big one, and then I drew a center circle also to indicate the center. Then on these other flowers, since they're looking off to the side, I knew that there would be an elliptical shape in the center, and then the outer petals follow that same shape. So I don't know if I can draw this oval that well, but here's the oval shape, and you can actually do this in pencil on your sketch paper or just practice it sometime when you're drawing flowers. And this makes it easy because this contains the shape, so you've got your center, and then you can draw your petals around it in the shapes that they should be in the correct proportions. And then I couldn't remember what a daisy leaf looked like, so I just looked up daisy leaves online and saw some pictures, and they have, there's lots of different ones, but I found this that has a leaf shape, but it's kind of squiggly on the sides, so I just did that and with my pen very quickly. And all that I had done at first was to do the three flowers with the leaves. And that looked pretty plain, and it left me with a lot of space on the page. Like if this box wasn't here and if that lettering wasn't there, I'd have a lot of space left over, and what would I do with it? I guess you could leave it, but it's nice to add things. So I thought, okay, I could draw a graphic box behind it, and I can add some color to that later, which would help to add some interest and make it look nice. So I did that, and again, I used my pencil first. I know that's not a very straight box, but I was in my car with limited space, so it was the best I could do. And by the way, I loved sketching in the car. I told my husband, oh, I have to do this more because, and he said, why did you like it so much? And I said, because I had no interruptions. Nobody asking me for something or the dog wanting to go out. It was great. Totally quiet. I really loved it. I have to do that more often. Okay, so I did the box, and I'll get to that later when I do the painting portion of this. And then I thought, okay, I've still got all this space here to deal with. I guess I could have made the box bigger, except that I wanted parts of the daisies to go outside the box because that creates a lot of visual interest. So I made the box the size that it is, And I thought, okay, I can just do some lettering here. And I haven't really done this downhill before, but I kind of like that. And I'll try to add a little more to it when I add paint to it, and maybe do some shadows on the letters or something. But I think it came out okay, and it helped to fill up that page. So that was my thought process for doing this. And now I'm going to go in and erase the pencil lines that I drew while I was talking. And then I'm going to go in and paint it. And eventually, I'm doing this, I'm talking while I'm recording. This is not a voiceover, but at some point I may have to speed up my video when I do some editing, just to keep the length at something that people want to see. So there may be sections where you won't hear me talk, but then I'll go back in and do a voiceover. Okay, so this is my voiceover section. I am erasing the pencil lines that I put in when I was showing how I drew the daisies. And what I was showing you there was my Vanish eraser, which is sold by Jerry's Artorama, but they also have them on Amazon if you just look for Vanish eraser. And that's a great eraser. I love it. I do have a kneaded eraser that I use from time to time, but I'm just so used to this one, I use it the most. So now I'm going to start painting my daisies with the centers. I always start a flower with the center. And I'm using Hansa Yellow Medium. And notice how I'm leaving white space in the middle, especially for that daisy that's going to be my focal point, the one on the left. And you'll see, once you start adding more dark color, you'll see how nice that looks and how much that white pops out. So that's just a nice little trick, is to leave some white in your centers. And I'm sorry you can't see what I was mixing up, but I was mixing up a violet or purple color for shadows on the daisies. And as you can see, it's not real dark. It's more water than paint, I think. And I was using probably my number 4, my Princeton Velvet Touch number 4 brush to do this. And you can just adjust your brush to the size of your paper. And notice what I'm doing is I put the color down right next to the center, and then I pull it out with water so that you don't pull that solid color all the way out on the petal. And that helps to make it look like the petal's turning. And that's a technique I use a lot in in floral painting. So there you can get a better look at where I'm adding water to it. And I'm leaving lots of white on the daisies, as you can see. The purple just represents really shadows. And notice there I'm putting the purple color on the tips of a couple of those, and what that does is make it look like it's turning under. On to the next one, same process. Adding some of the purple color and then rinsing my brush, pulling it out with just clear water. And I know I don't have a clear light source in this sketch, but it is just a sketch. So I really, with the other things that were going on at the time, I wasn't really thinking about that. This was more of a video about establishing the shapes. So on to the third one now. Same process. There you can get a really good view of how I'm adding the purple and then pulling the color out. And you have to do it quickly before that dries. You don't want to get a hard line from that. So that's why I do 1 or 2 petals at a time. So before that purple color dries, I want to be able to go back with clear water and pull some of the color out. So you have to work pretty quickly. I don't wet the petals first at all. I just put the color on and then add the water later. If you wet the petals first, that color is going to go all over. You won't be able to control it. There. I'm just reinforcing some of the color there. As it dries, it tends to lighten up. Now I want to go back to those centers. I've given it time to dry. The yellow color is dry. Now I'm going back with some of my quinacridone burnt orange, which is like burnt sienna. You could use that too. Just a darker value to go around the outer edges of the centers to create some depth. And as I do that, notice how the center, the yellow and the white center, starts to pop out. And I think I actually add one more darker color later on to just reinforce that. You might have to go back and do that a couple of times as it dries because it will lighten up. But you can see how it gives dimension and it just really makes those centers pop. And then I'll wait before I add more color to that, so I'll go on and do something else. And so now I'm wetting the areas where the stems are at the bottom of the painting. And what I like to do with stems and leaves is I have a color called green gold. Mine is Winsor Newton, but a lot of companies make it. And I apply the green gold first, and because it's a nice light color. And then I like to just vary the color on the stems and the leaves, getting a darker color up toward where it meets the petal, because that would be more in shadow. And what I have found is that if I just add some ultramarine blue to that green gold, it makes a nice dark value. So I don't have to do a lot of color mixing. I just pick up some ultramarine blue, add it to my green gold, and there you go. You've got a darker value. And when I apply it to the leaves or the stem, notice I don't put the dark values solid on those. There's spots where it's lighter and spots where it's darker up toward the petals. And on the leaves, it's the same process. I think left a little bit of white there, but that just adds more interest to not fill in a solid shape. Just leave some variations in color. And I see on that bottom left flower, one of the stems I forgot to add dark value to, so I'll have to go and do that later off camera. And apologies for my bouncing table. What was happening is I have a camera overhead. I use my iPhone, and it's attached to my ring light, and my head was bumping the ring light, so it makes it jiggle. Not a real sophisticated setup, but it works. Okay, so I've got, there I'm adding some dark value to that leaf, leaving some light as well. So don't cover it all in dark. And so I have that all filled in now, and I'd like to work on the background. Oh, here is where I added more dark color to the centers again. And I don't think you could see it on my palette, but I have a color called, I think it's called cobalt. It's not cobalt violet. Maybe it's cobalt violet deep or something. It's like a purple color. And I added a little bit of that to the quinacridone burnt orange, and that darkens the value. So now I'm using that color to go around and so get an even darker value. And look how nice those centers look now. They just really pop out. And while I was doing that, it was giving time for my leaves and stems to dry. And because I want to go in and add a background color that I think will add a lot of interest to this sketch. And again, I'm sorry that it wasn't totally in the picture. You can see it there. What I decided to do was use cobalt blue. So this whole background inside this frame that I drew is going to be cobalt blue. And what I did, the way that I apply it is I wet the area first that I was going to paint, and then I apply the cobalt blue color. And when you have a drawing like this where you've got divisions in it with your lines, that's great for wetting a section, being able to get the color in before you move on, and then go on to the next section. Because I live in Arizona where it's really dry, and the paper dries so fast. But this way, if I wet one section at a time, it works great. And notice there, when I apply that color, I was laying the brush down, using the belly of the brush laying it on its side just to use up the entire brush and the color that's on the brush. Making sure I get enough color in there. And just practice on a piece of paper about how dark you want it before you go to your sketchbook with that. And so I'm continuing to move around the sketch in those little sections. So I wet one section, get it wet with the water, and then go back and add my blue color. There I was just using my liner brush to fix up some areas that I missed when I went around and added the color. But look how nice it looks with the blue background. It really makes the white daisies pop out a lot more. And it's a nice complement to those yellow centers. So when you're doing things like this, you need to think about the colors you're using and make sure you're using colors that are complementary or colors that will go well together. And just refer to your color wheel if you're not sure. I have one right on my table that I use all the time. Going back, reinforcing the shadows on the daisies, adding a little more color where I thought it needed it. Again, pulling out that color with water before it dries so I don't have little hard lines. More jiggling of my camera. And I was just cleaning up an edge there. That brush I was using is a 1/4 inch Princeton Velvet Touch. It's a flat brush, and that's a really nice brush to do cleanup with. It's short, it's easy to control, and I like how the bristles are. They're really good at picking up edges like that where you have a straight edge. Now onto my lettering. So on the lettering, notice that I wet the inside of the letter first. I'm going to do just one letter at a time. I wet it and then add the color. And I'm actually using 2 colors here. I like to float 2 colors. So I added the yellow, the Hensa Yellow Medium at the top, and Cobalt Blue at the bottom. And I chose those 2 colors because I'm repeating colors that are in the painting. I wouldn't want to suddenly add colors that you hadn't seen anywhere else. And I thought the yellow and the blue would look really good together. So I'm using my tiny, I think it's my number 1 brush. That is also a Princeton Velvet Touch. And just wetting it first, wetting each section of the letter first, and then adding my yellow paint and then the blue at the bottom. And I have other videos on drawing these letters. If you wanted more information about how to draw these letters, you can look at some of my other videos for that. I didn't take the time here to explain that. And this is just one style of lettering. There's many styles of lettering, and I'm going to try to do some others in future videos to kind of give you an idea. But I really like how lettering adds a nice touch to sketches. I don't always use it, but I do like lettering. I think it's because I studied calligraphy for so many years, and I've always loved calligraphy since I was a child. I can remember being 8 years old and wanting to learn how to do these letters. It just fascinated me. So I do like it a lot. They're doing the S, and again, I'm wetting each letter. And the reason I'm using such a tiny brush is it's not very big. And you don't want the water, when you wet it first, you don't want the water to go outside of the letter. That'll make a big mess. So if you don't have a brush like a number 1, use a liner brush. That'll work. And I probably could have made larger letters too, or thicker letters, and I just didn't. S's are kind of tricky, so I just did the yellow at the top and the blue at the bottom. And I like the look of that. It all looks cohesive. You got the colors in the letters, matching the colors in the sketch. Just a nice little touch. And I don't know what I'm doing here. That's my Velvet Touch 1/4 inch. It says number 8, but I call it a 1/4 inch flat. Oh, I'm doing some cleanup where I went outside the lines. And that does a pretty good job of that. Those bristles are a little stiffer because it's just a 1/4 inch brush, and the bristles aren't that long. So that's what I like about being able to fix things with it. And as those things dry, I may have to go back in and add some more color on those letters. But right now, what I wanted to do to finish this is add a little spatter. I like the spatter. My husband doesn't like spattering, but I think it adds a nice touch to something like this. In a formal painting, I probably wouldn't do it, but here what I'm doing is adding some of the yellow and some of the blue as spatters on the painting. And I like the look of that. Dabbing up a few spatters that went too far in the wrong places. So there you have it, my finished little sketch, a great sketch for beginners. I hope this helps you. Please leave a comment if it does help you, and think about subscribing. Thanks so much for watching.